She walked in to withdraw her own money, and they treated her like a criminal. Branch manager Jessica Vaughn saw a modest black woman and assumed ignorance, poverty, or worse. The woman's name was Clarissa James, and in that moment she was surrounded by smirks, whispers, and suspicion. Her ID was questioned. Her intentions were doubted. Her dignity was chipped away, one cold glance at a time. But when they picked Clarissa James as their target that morning, they didn't know who they were messing with. They didn't know she was the CEO of the very bank they worked for. What came next wasn't just justice, it was exposure, and it shook the walls of the institution from the marble floor of that lobby to the highest boardroom on the 21st floor. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you're watching from and make sure to subscribe, because the story you're about to hear isn't just about one woman, it's about all of us. Sunlight spilled across the cold tile as Clarissa stood at the counter, calm but unyielding. Security cameras blinked overhead. Somewhere behind the frosted glass door, the weight of silence was about to break, and with it, a system that had long gone unchecked. It was just past 9 a.m. on a breezy Tuesday when Clarissa James stepped into the main branch of Dominion Trust Bank. She wore a navy cardigan, neatly pressed slacks, and a plain leather handbag. Her hair was natural, tucked under a soft cap. To the eye of a casual observer, she was just another middle-aged woman with time to spare on a weekday morning. But Clarissa wasn't ordinary, not by any measure. She was the chief executive officer of the very bank she had just walked into. For the past 27 years, she had worked her way up, from night teller to the top floor corner office. No silver spoon. No shortcuts, just grit, grace, and long hours after everyone else had gone home. Today, though, Clarissa wasn't here to be recognized. She was here to watch, listen, and feel. You see, for months now, customer satisfaction surveys had whispered something troubling. Not loud enough to force a headline, but steady, like a faucet dripping in the night. Clients from minority backgrounds reported delays, cold treatment, second-guessing. Yet the official metrics painted a different story. Profits up, service scores stable. That contradiction gnawed at her. And so she decided to find out the truth with her own eyes. She took a seat in the waiting area, pulled out her phone, and observed. The branch manager didn't glance her way. Staff moved with confidence, unaware of the quiet storm sitting 10 feet from them. One by one, she watched how customers were treated, who was greeted warmly, who was asked for ID twice, who was escorted, and who was ignored. And slowly, a pattern began to reveal itself. Have you ever seen someone being treated unfairly, and you just knew in your gut something was wrong? Clarissa did. And what she saw that day, in those quiet minutes before anyone spoke a word to her, would shake the foundation of her institution. Sometimes the most powerful people are the ones who say the least. Until the moment they must speak. After 37 minutes of waiting, while 3 other customers, all white, had come and gone, Clarissa James finally stepped up to the teller window. She kept her voice gentle and her posture calm. "I'd like to make a withdrawal," she said, sliding over her ID and a neatly filled slip. The teller, young, blonde, with a glossy name tag that read Ashley, glanced at the paper. Her cheerful smile dimmed. 220,000, she asked, voice just loud enough to draw the attention of the next window. "We don't normally hand out that kind of money just like that." Clarissa nodded, patient. "It's well within my account limits." Ashley's eyes darted to the amount again, then up to Clarissa's face. She leaned back and whispered something to her colleague. Within seconds, a tall man in a fitted vest appeared beside her, arms folded across his chest. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, directing the question to Clarissa, though his tone made it sound like an accusation. Clarissa looked around. Eyes were watching. The room had grown quieter. "No problem," she said. "Just a routine withdrawal." "Well," he said, drawing out the word, "we've had issues lately with accounts like these." accounts like these." The phrase lingered in the air like a sour note. Ashley began clicking away at her keyboard. Another staffer, leaning in, whispered, "Maybe a lottery win, or something sketchy." They didn't whisper quietly enough. Clarissa stood still, her breathing slow, her hands calm, but inside she felt it. The familiar weight of being doubted before being known. How many times had she worn a title they couldn't see, simply because they couldn't see past her skin? What would you have done in that moment, when dignity is met with suspicion? She could have snapped, but she didn't, because Clarissa knew something they didn't. She was near to prove her worth. She was here to reveal theirs. Clarissa had seen enough. As the tiller called over yet another supervisor to verify the authenticity of her transaction, she took a small step back from the counter, her phone now gently resting in her hand. No sudden moves, just a quiet, practiced grace. The same grace she had relied on when being the only black woman in a boardroom full of raised eyebrows and folded arms. Her eyes drifted upward to the security camera overhead. It blinked steadily, recording everything. The whispering, the smirks, the sideways glances. She knew by heart how many branches this bank operated. She also knew this one had more exit complaints from minority clients than all the others combined. That wasn't coincidence, that was culture. Minutes earlier, she'd watched a white man in a suit, Rolex flashing, be ushered straight past the line with handshakes and a cappuccino. A young Latina mother with 2 toddlers was told to wait by the wall. An elderly Asian gentleman had his documents triple-checked. Same branch, same policies, different faces, different treatment. Now it was her turn. But unlike the others, she had come prepared, not just to experience it, but to document it. She tapped a number on her phone, the tone in her voice now polished and unmistakably authoritative. "Yes, this is Clarissa James. I'm at the downtown Dominion branch. I've just been refused service without cause." The teller froze. The supervisor blinked. I'm sorry, what was your name again?" Clarissa met his eyes, her voice low but firm. "I suggest you remember it. Have you ever watched a room realize, too late, that they were looking at power the whole time?" The silence in the lobby was suddenly heavier than noise. Clarissa didn't need to raise her voice. She had something far louder, the truth backed by evidence. And in that moment, what had seemed like harmless procedures unraveled into something uglier, something that could no longer hide behind smiles or policy binders. Sometimes, the most dangerous bias is the kind that wears a name tag and says, "We're just doing our job." The hush fell over the branch lobby as Clarissa ended her call. She placed her phone gently on the counter alongside her ID and bank card. Still composed, still quiet. But something in the air had shifted. Jessica Vaughn, the branch manager, had finally arrived, heels clicking with authority, expression rehearsed to show polite concern. She didn't ask Clarissa's name. She didn't introduce herself. She just assumed control, as if that authority was owed to her. "Ma'am," Jessica said, arms folded, voice dipped in condescension, "we have policies in place for unusually large transactions. Perhaps you'd feel more comfortable at the check-cashing center down the street." It was said with a smile, but it wasn't kindness. It was dismissal, dressed in pearls. Clarissa didn't flinch. She simply opened her purse, pulled out a slim leather badge folio, and unfolded it on the counter. A single line of gold letters, embossed in quiet power: Clarissa James, Chief Executive Officer. Jessica's face drained of color. "I'm not here for comfort," Clarissa said evenly. "I'm here to see how my customers are treated when no one thinks they matter." The room went silent. The smirks vanished. The staff shifted uneasily. A customer who had been watching dropped her pen. What would you have done if the person you just dismissed turned out to be the one person who could dismiss you? Jessica took a step back, blinking as if waking from a dream. But it wasn't a dream. It was a reckoning. And Clarissa had just flipped the script. Not out of anger, but out of duty. Not to shame, but to reveal. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a leader can do is become the mirror and let others see what they've truly become. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Jessica Vaughn stared at the badge on the counter like it was a live wire, her polished demeanor fractured. "This is a misunderstanding," she stammered, smoothing her blouse with trembling fingers. "We were just following standard protocols." Clarissa tilted her head slightly. "You mean the protocol where a white businessman was escorted to a desk without showing ID, while I was questioned like a criminal?" Jessica opened her mouth, then closed it. Behind her, two senior tellers, Eric and Mallory, stood frozen. Their laughter from earlier now echoed like ghosts. Then came the sound that truly broke the tension, the ding of the elevator. From the glass doors, Diane Corbin, Dominion's chief operating officer, marched in. She didn't smile. She didn't pause. Her heels struck the floor like a gavel. "Stop everything," she said, voice ringing through the lobby. "Right now." Staff stepped back as if the air had turned electric. Diane crossed the room, made eye contact with Clarissa, and nodded. One leader to another. Then she turned to Jessica. "Do you know who you just refused service to?" she asked coldly. "That's your CEO. And you did it under surveillance, for 17 minutes, in front of customers." Jessica's knees nearly buckled. Eric turned pale. Mallory covered her mouth. "What happens inside you when justice finally walks through the door?" Clarissa, still poised, remained silent. This wasn't about vengeance. It was about visibility. Diane didn't shout. She didn't rage. She simply turned to security. "Escort Ms. Vaughn, Mr. Harlan, and Ms. Sims off the premises. Immediately. Their employment ends now." The entire lobby seemed to exhale. No cheers, just stunned silence, and the quiet gravity of consequences. Sometimes dignity looks like stillness in the face of chaos. And sometimes the loudest statement is made by who walks out and who stays standing. 3 days later, Clarissa James stood behind a podium bearing the Dominion Trust seal. Bright lights flashed, cameras rolled. The grand hall buzzed with reporters, but Clarissa's voice, calm and resolute, cut through the noise. "This isn't a press opportunity," she began. "It's a reckoning and a promise." Behind her stood members of the board. To her left, Diane Corbin. To her right, Beth, the young teller who had looked down in shame but chose to speak up when it mattered. Clarissa had promoted her to interim branch manager, not because she was perfect, but because she had the courage to learn. Clarissa continued, "Dominion Trust is investing $50 million, 0 cents, into what we now call the Equal Access Initiative. That means better training, real accountability, and voices from the communities we've failed, brought to the very tables where decisions are made." A large screen behind her lit up with data, numbers that had once been buried, loan rejection rates, service gaps, delayed approvals for minority-owned businesses. The truth was no longer hidden. In the front row sat Michael, whose loan had been denied 3 times despite perfect credit. Elena, who was told she wasn't quite the right fit for the premium account. And Mr. Davis, a retired postal worker, who'd quietly left the bank last year after being treated like a bother. Now they were part of the Client Equity Council, shaping the future of the very bank that had once turned them away. Do you believe broken systems can truly change, or does that feel too far gone? Clarissa didn't claim perfection, but she claimed responsibility, and more importantly, she offered a blueprint. "We're not just changing what we say, we're changing how we see," she declared. Because when leadership meets humility, and power meets purpose, something new begins. And for the first time in a long time, Dominion Trust was ready to live up to its name. 6 months had passed. Clarissa James, dressed once again in modest clothes, walked quietly into a small branch on the city's south side. No entourage, no cameras, just a woman checking in on her promise. The waiting area looked brighter now. Walls once lined with glossy marketing were now decorated with framed stories, real ones. Photos of local business owners, testimonials from customers who felt heard, and a plaque near the counter that read, "All deserve dignity. If your experience says otherwise, call this number." Beneath it was Clarissa's direct office line. Behind the teller window stood Beth. She caught Clarissa's eye and gave a knowing smile. The quiet teller, once too afraid to speak, now led her team with confidence, holding weekly check-ins on equitable service and mentoring 2 interns from underserved neighborhoods. Clarissa watched a young black man in work boots cash a check. The teller greeted him with warmth, no extra forms, no raised brows, just the service he deserved. Another customer, an elderly white woman, asked to speak with someone about her account options. She wasn't brushed off. She was invited into a small office, offered tea. Equal care, no matter the name, face, or zip code. What does real change feel like when it finally takes root? It doesn't shout. It hums. It becomes rhythm, normal, expected. Clarissa didn't stay long. She smiled, nodded at Beth, and walked out as quietly as she had come. Back in her office, she reviewed new quarterly reports. Complaints were down. Retention among minority clients was rising. But more than that, trust was returning. And she knew it wasn't just about punishing bad apples. It was about planting new seeds in better soil. Because true leadership isn't about being the loudest in the room. It's about being the last one standing when it matters most, and giving others the strength to stand with you. Sometimes the most powerful response to injustice isn't loud or angry. It's quiet, steady, and full of self-respect. Clarissa James didn't need to raise her voice to be heard. She didn't argue or plead to be treated fairly. She simply stood her ground, trusted her truth, and let the truth speak for itself. In doing so, she reminded us that dignity isn't something others give us. It's something we carry, even when the world tries to take it away. Many of us have faced moments in life when we were overlooked, underestimated, or treated unfairly. And maybe we didn't always know what to say in those moments. But we can choose how to carry ourselves. We can choose to meet insult with calm and prejudice with principle. Respect, after all, begins with how we see ourselves. So if today feels heavy, or if the world doesn't seem to notice the quiet strength you bring, remember this: you don't have to prove your worth to anyone. You just have to remember it. And when the time is right, let that quiet strength speak louder than any words ever could. She didn't walk out with applause. No cameras followed her into the quiet morning. Clarissa James simply stepped into the light of a new day, shoulders steady, heart intact. That's the kind of strength we often overlook, the kind that doesn't demand recognition, but leaves a mark anyway. In the weeks that followed, the branch was rebuilt from within, not just with new hires or new paint, but with new eyes. People who saw each customer as human, not as a risk. The hurt wasn't erased, but it was acknowledged, and from that honesty came healing. The old whispers of racism didn't disappear overnight, but now they had an answer, and her name was known. If this story stayed with you, share it. Subscribe to Echoes of Racism so these voices don't fade into silence. In the meantime, I've chosen 2 stories I think will move you just as much. Take care, and we'll see you soon.